Hey beautiful, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm so glad to have you. My name is Chisom. On this channel, I share sewing tutorial videos and fashion related contents. So today we'll be learning how to draft a basic pencil skirt pattern. This is so easy to make and is beginners friendly. With this pattern, you will get it right with your skirt drafting. This is going to give the ones with tiny waist and bigger hips a very perfect fitting. It's not the one that will press your butt or squeeze your hips. And even if you don't have much hips and butts, this is going to be very comfortable on you and it will enhance your figure. If you're interested to learn how to draft this correctly, keep on watching and let's dive straight into it. First thing I'm going to do is to mark the mid part of this pattern paper, and this is going to separate the front from the back because we'll be drafting the front and the back on this same pattern. After that, I will rule a line at the top of the paper, and this line is going to serve as the waistline. I'll rule for the front part and the back part as well. So I'm going to label this pattern, the top line. I'll label here back because I want the back to be this side that is, closer to your view, while this other side is going to be the front. Next, I'm going to measure from the waistline. I'll mark my waist to hips. For my waist to hips, I marked 9.5 inches, waist to knee, and then the full skirt length. I will also extend this line to the front part, waist to hips, waist to knee, and the skirt length. Now for the waist to knee, it's advised that you mark 2 inches above your knee line, not exactly on your knee. For example, my knee length is 21, but here I marked 19 inches. This is because if you mark exactly on your knee line, it's going to hold you. It won't allow you walk freely, at least. Not that this one is going to be entirely free anyway, but just mark 2 inches above your knee line. So I'll label waistline, hip line, knee line, and then the skirt length. Note that you can also use this method for short skirts, long skirts, or mid skirts, depending on the length you prefer. Now we'll start from the front part, which is this side. On the waistline, I will impute the waist divide by 4 plus that allowance. On the hip line, I'll mark the hips divide by 4. Now on the knee line, what I have on the hips line, I will take away 2 inches or 1.5 inches and mark it on the knee line. Now this depends on how fitted you want it or how big your thigh is. Like me, I have a big thigh, so I took away 1.5, but if you're slim, you can take away as much as 2 inches and mark it on the knee line and on the hem line. Now on the hem line, I'll connect to the knee line with a straight line. You can see it's straight because what is on the hem line is exactly what is on the knee line. Now from the knee, I'll connect to the hips. And that part is curvy because the hips measurement is obviously bigger than the knee. And from the hips line, I'll connect to the waistline. And when I'm connecting it on the side, I'll extend it by ½ inch. I'll smoothen the hip line because I don't want it to be sharp around there. Now on the waistline by the side, I went up by ½ inch. On the center front waistline, I will come down by 1 inch. This is to eliminate smile lines, to make it smooth around the front line. Okay, so I'll connect the 1 inch I came down by on the center front to the ½ inch I went up by on the side, like so. So you can see the front waistline is now kind of curvy. I'll get the midpoint of the waistline. I'll measure the waistline and mark half of what I got, which is the midpoint. So that is where I'll be imputing my dart. So I'll mark exactly that on the hip line, but the dart is not going to get to the hip line. It will stop 2 inches above the hip line. So I'll connect straight and then take my dart on the waistline. For the waistline dart, I am using ½ inch on both sides, and then I'll connect the both sides to where the dart is meant to stop, which is 2 inches above the hip line. Okay, now I'll connect the both sides of the dart. So you can see that we are done with the front part. Now let's move to the back part. First thing I'm going to do on the back is to mark 1 inch from the center back. This is meant to be the center back, okay? So I'll mark 1 inch before I start my measurement taking. So after marking the 1 inch, I will label here zipper allowance. Okay, this is supposed to be the zipper allowance, though there's going to be a little alteration at the end. All right, so on the waistline, the center back waist, I'll come in by 1 inch, and on the knee, I'll go in by 1 inch again. I'll connect the points to the hip line. I'll connect the points on the waistline to the hip line, okay, and then the knee line as well to the hip line. Now this has reshaped the center back because the butt sits on the center back, okay. That is why this alteration is very necessary. Now I'll connect straight from the knee line to the hem line to the skirt length. Okay, now I will begin my measurement taking. From this line, 1 inch I came in by, I'll measure my waist, divide by 4 plus that allowance. On the hip line, I'll measure my hips, divide by 4. Now on the knee line, what I have in front is what I'll impute from this 1 inch I came in by, which is 9.5. I'll mark it right there. And what I have on the knee line, I'll put exactly that on the skirt length. Now I'll connect straight from the knee line to the skirt length and from the knee line to the hips, and connect the hips to the waistline. Now I'll extend it by ½ inch, just like we did for the front part. I'll extend the side of the back by ½ inch and connect it to the center back waistline. Now I'll get the mid part of the waistline. I'll measure the waistline and mark the midpoint, and then I'll take it down to the hip line. Now I'll measure from the center back on the hip line to be sure that the line is going to be straight, okay, but it's not going to end on the hip line. It will end 2 inches before the hip line. That is where the dart will end. So I'm cross-checking to be sure it's 2 inches. Now I'm going to take my dart of ½ inch on the waistline and connect to the dart point or the end of the dart line. Now, if you're going to be attaching this skirt to a top like a dress, make sure you use the same dart you used for the upper part so that at the end of the day, everything will correspond. So what is left is to add the zipper allowance on the center back. Okay, so I want to add 1 inch zipper allowance on the center back. So from the knee, I'll come out by 1 inch, which is already there, and connect to the hip line, the 1 inch initial zipper allowance I added on the hip line. So on the waistline again, I'll connect from the hips to this 1 inch I left on the waist before taking my measurement. So that is the one I'll connect to the hip line, like so. So you can see how at the center back it is kind of puffy. It's not straight because the center back is obviously not straight. Okay, so this is basically all for this pattern. You can tell that this pattern is very easy to make. This is just a simple trick you need to upgrade your skirt making process. Now we have come to the end of today's tutorial. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I hope this tutorial was helpful to you just as it was intended. If it was, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel if you're yet to. I hope to see you in my next tutorial. Bye.